Hi, my name is Emma, and I'm here with Diego, Jasmine, Antoine, and Claudine. And we're going to start off talking about the Time Warner and AOL merger. Next slide. Time Warner in 1999 had revenues of 27.3 billion, net income of 1.95 billion, 69,700 employees, and it was headquartered in New York, New York. AOL in 1999 had revenue of 6.9 billion, a net income of 1.23 billion, 15,000 employees, and is headquartered in Dulles, Virginia. This merger was aimed to create the world's first fully integrated media and communication company for the internet century in an all-stock combination valued at $350 billion. Due to the larger market capitalization of AOL, their shareholders would own 55% of the new company, while Time Warner shareholders owned only 45%. Time Warner had been looking for a way to embrace the digital revolution, while AOL wanted to convert its stock price into tangible assets.
So go back one slide. So going into more about the merger details, the stock swap is essentially where AOL shareholders would hold 55%, whereas Time Warner would hold the other 45% of the new company. And AOL, Time Warner was to be traded under the ticker AOL. And the main purpose for this was to become a global powerhouse. And together, Time Warner and AOL aimed to be more competitive since each company lacked their own assets to compete in this new internet age. And they both realized they had individual strengths, but together they could utilize more and build a mutually beneficial relationship. As for the perfect merger, so AOL provided internet service to 50% of all subscribers in the United States, and Time Warner has about 20% of all cable television subscribers. AOL currently has nearly 29 million subscribers, 26 million AOL customers, and 2.8 million CompuServe customers. And the company's two instant messaging services, AOL Instant Messenger and ICQ, have more than 140 million registered users together. Each surpassing rival services such as Microsoft and Yahoo. But in the end, AOL would have increased competition for its core business, and Time Warner would have increased access to its digital era, which is what made it seem to be the perfect merger. For modes of acculturation, so in 2000, AOL did merge with Time Warner for $165 billion. This was the largest merger to date at the time, but there were a lot of issues with this merger. 6 are listed over here, but many of the expected synergies between AOL and other Time Warner divisions never really materialized, as most of Time Warner divisions were considered very independent and they rarely cooperated prior to the merger. There's also different incentive programs that were initiated based on just the performance of AOL Time Warner, such as replacing different cash bonuses for the results of their own division. And it just created a lot of tension and resentment among Time Warner division heads who blamed the AOL division for failing to meet expectations. As for internal attacks, a lot of the different executives within each of the companies, they just never really worked together. They were very resistant towards each other's ideas, and they never really had that synergy with each other inside the company. There was among that a lack of communication and an inability to recognize trends. AOL and Time Warner failed to implement their vision successfully, and they never really encouraged a healthy climate between the two companies, which also led to a lack of overall focus.
Economic distance in the Confederation. Some of the challenges that they actually, between the two, once the companies merged, that they faced, first of all, was stalled growth. Growth and profitability declined. There was a loss of market share. AOL lost their market share, of course, as more companies came into the market. And of course, they actually weren't able to innovate to move forward in that market. The value of AOL, they lost $99 billion and overall lost their stock chain dropped from 226 billion to roughly 20 billion. Post-failed merger, management communication, AOL took over. Basically, Time Warner became a distant cousin, so to speak. They actually AOL was the only thing that was actually known across the board. And then the business model, they were unwilling to pay. There were IP issues, and AOL ultimately did not benefit. Moving on to a merger that did work, one of the most notable mergers kind of across the board, Disney and Pixar, two very dominant animation companies that merged together to create an even greater powerhouse.
Yeah, so before we go into what happened with the actual merger and acquisition, just a little background on the companies. So Disney, as you know, is best known for family entertainment in the 20th and 21st century. But besides that, Disney is actually one of the largest media conglomerates in the world. In addition to Disney brand itself, it owns ABC, ESPN, Marvel, 20th Century Fox, and as we'll get into, Pixar. So Pixar is an American computer animation studio that was founded in 1986. And what Pixar is really known for is that they were instrumental in the development and the production of computer animated films. They're appreciated also not only for their visuals, but their intellectual, emotional storytelling. And on the right-hand side, you could see some of the notable, Pixar movies that they worked on before actually being bought by Disney. So prior to the merger, there was actually a prior partnership, and this partnership happened in 1997. So this was a 10-year deal. It was included 5 pictures, and the production costs were evenly split, as well as the profits for all of the movies included. Disney was actually the one that retained the rights to the film and its characters. And Disney, in addition, collected 10 to 15% of each film's revenue as a distribution fee. So although both Disney and Pixar agreed to this, there was some conflict in the partnership. But thankfully, this conflict was resolved when the current CEO of Disney, Bob Iger, took over leadership. And shortly after he took over leadership, that's when the merger occurred in 2006. And as you can see on the right-hand side, these are the titles of the 5 movies that were successful, that were part of the Pixar and Disney partnership. So as you can see, they had revenue, and yeah.
Okay, so with the acquisition, this took place on May 5th of 2006, and Disney had acquired 7.4 billion shares of Pixar. It was considered one of the most successful acquisition mergers ever to take place. So the reasons for the success was because there was potential for Disney to leverage Pixar. Pixar had a very advanced technology in their movie creations, and this was something Disney could definitely utilize in their more traditional methods. They also had similar goals and operations in terms of what their market was, and they used a successful confederation strategy. So with the confederation strategy, how it works is each company was preserving their own unique identities. But what they did was through their existing identities, they began to integrate. So they kept their own brand names, their own structures, and they each had their own legal independence. Pixar still remained with its own kinds of characters and branding in movies, and so did Disney. But what they did was synergize their unique offerings. And they also did this by taking Pixar's movie making technology with Disney's hand-drawn cartoons and putting them together to create a new style of movies. So then again, this goes into how in modes of acculturation, they started out as separate entities. They were in separation, but later went to integration. And that's because how they wanted to preserve their own brands and their strong identities, because they were both very successful on their own. But later they began to integrate their 2 strengths. And that's, as I mentioned before, how they combined Pixar's technology with Disney's. They also applied game theory, and this was done as they, being two independent companies, they worked on several films together, like Toy Story, Cars, and WALL-E. And what they did was they focused on creativity and imagination as their main selling points. They also had added values by working together. Because they were both very dominant animation companies, by coming together, they were almost an unbeatable powerhouse. And they were even able to partnership to create and revive the whole Walt Disney era, which at a time was found to be losing creativity and popularity. So with that, we analyzed a successful merger and one that was seen as a failure, and we were able to apply very important concepts to it. And we thank you for listening and for your time.